Hi everyone. This video is just to quickly introduce you to the Mathspace website, which we'll be using for our maths classwork for the foreseeable future. This is different to Cambridge Go, where we were using the work before. The main differences here is that you will be required to put your answers into Mathspace so that I can clearly see how you're progressing, especially during this remote learning phase part 2. So let's begin with what we need to do to get access to Mathspace. So first of all, we will go to our class page for math, and on the right hand side in the link section, you will see a new link for Mathspace. So we're simply going to start by clicking on that. Once the page is loaded, you need to go to the top right to the login location and click on that. Once the page has loaded, you need to put your username and password in. Your username will be your school email address, and your password will be whatever you've set, or if you haven't reset it recently, it'll be the one that I've sent you in an email. So again, your password is not your school password at the moment. It is a password set by Mathspace to begin with, which I will have emailed to you. So if you can't find that, please get in contact with me ASAP. Once you have logged in, of course, you can change it. And if that's the case and you've forgotten your password, please make sure you do the forgot password option to retrieve it yourself, because I generally can't. So again, your school email address for the username and the password I've sent you, or if you reset it, of course, whatever password you have. Okay, once you have logged into Mathspace, this is what we call the dashboard. And you can get to the dashboard by clicking on the dashboard link up in the top left from anywhere in the site. If you need, just get back to this starting position. You'll see on the far right hand side some information about yourself. So of course you can see your name, you can see the avatar that you picked, the little symbol. Again, if it's the first time you log in, you'll be asked to set this. But because we did actually set our login, most of us in the very start of the year, most of you will already have a picture. You can see any tasks that are due this week. You can see points that you've earned, and we'll talk about that at a later stage. And you can see the textbook that is technically assigned to you. So again, that should all be the same, the Year 7 2020 Victorian Curriculum Edition. If you need to change something like your password, you click on the small icon up the top far right, and you can go into your settings. From your settings page, you'll be able to do things like change your password here. I encourage you not to fiddle with any other settings such as time zone, etc. It'll just make your life more difficult, but certainly changing your password is something that you can do if need be. Now, the main section of the screen, of course, is dedicated to the work that you need to do. So probably the most important part is the upcoming tasks. Here it shows you the tasks that are most recently due. So you can see two things probably. The first one is this Mathspace Basics. It's actually a built-in task that Mathspace automatically gives you when you first sort of sign in, and it will actually go through how to use Mathspace. So while I'm not saying you absolutely have to do this, I would encourage you to do this as part of your first lesson after you watch this video, to try and get yourself familiar with how Mathspace works. The second task I've given you is one that I've actually assigned. Now, it's got nothing to do with our actual topic we're beginning. It's just on basic operations with whole numbers, so plus, minus, division and multiplication. And again, I've just set this one as an opportunity for you to have a play in Mathspace to try out how the site works without necessarily affecting any results that you might get for the real work. Below that, you usually have some other ones that the site is recommending to you that it thinks may be useful for you for extra revision, extra work, extra practice. So usually these will relate to whatever topic we're doing, and because I've set this whole numbers, it's looking at whole numbers as possibly something that you might be interested in looking at. So of course, I always encourage you to do extra work to practice skills, but again, these are recommendations down here. They are not required tasks. If we look at the task, this whole numbers, you can see I've set it to be due in 4 days. So it tells you when something is due. It's telling me over here that it is a new task. It's something that's been added to the system probably since last time I logged in. So I can also click up here at the top, say view all the tasks that are assigned. And in this screen, if there was lots of tasks assigned, maybe I've assigned things right through the whole topic, you'd be able to see all of them, including tasks that have gone past that you either completed or made incomplete completely before the due date, be able to see all of them. Okay, because remember the dashboard will only show the first few tasks that are due, the newest tasks that are due in the shortest amount of time. Whichever way you go, whether you go through view all tasks or from the dashboard, when you're ready to do a task, you just need to click on it. So I'm going to come over to this pencil here and I'm going to click on that because I want to start doing the task. Okay, so this is what a Mathspace question looks like. And the first thing is it does one question per screen. So you don't have several to fill in and then submit at the bottom. You literally do one question at a time, submit, so that one is done. Before we try and actually answer it, let's have a little look at the screen. So the first thing is we can see which question number it is and the question is listed. We have a space to put our answer in and we'll come back to that. Over on the right hand side, we have some icons. The first little icon with the light bulb is what they call hints. And if this is shown, it means there are some hints that you can get to help you with this question. Okay. It may not always be available, especially if I have set it to say no hints are allowed because we're maybe doing some revision or a practice test. So sometimes hints are not available, but if you need a hint, you can do that. I will make it clear though that it does show up to me as your teacher whether you've used hints. So again, it's not a bad thing, right? Don't think you can never use hints, but of course I always encourage you to try your best and then use the hints if you actually need them. Below that, this little icon with the book symbol, that takes you to the chapter in their book. So it takes you back to the notes essentially around how to do this type of question. So again, that shows up if you use it. Again, if you need it, please do use it. Don't be afraid to use it. But it is important to realize that, again, sometimes it's not going to be there. Down the bottom right, we have the submit button. Of course, you use that when you are done. And you can say skip a step, and that'll make more sense in just a second. There are also some options up the top. You can click on this sketchpad icon, and if you do that, you technically can draw on the screen. It's a little bit like taking notes. You do have to use your mouse, etc. But also be aware that those get saved. So if you do anything silly, it will be visible to me. Okay. When you're finished drawing or sketching on your screen, you can press the close sketchpad, and of course you can still see it there, but it's now back to the answer editing screen. You also have these three dots which let you see details and basically in sort of help, I guess, for the site. So not that useful, but it's important to know it's there. And then this bar here in the top right is your progress bar. So as you do questions, that will fill up, but you can also click the drop down to see how many questions are left to go, and you can click on these circles to move through as well. And what we can see is this simple task, again, it was only to practice the questions and how Mathspace works. It's not a real task, so I've actually only got one question visible at the moment. Okay, let's have a look at how we actually do a question. So here we have our question, and I said what we will always expect you to still do is to do your working out in your book. So I'd expect you to have your book next to you. I'd expect you to write out 54,762 plus 2008. I'd hope that you would do that in the vertical algorithm that we learned earlier in the year, and you'll eventually work out your answer in your book, and then really what you're doing is coming in here to put in your answer. Okay, so again, I'll use a sketchpad for a moment, and I'm just going to erase this scribble that I did. So as I was saying, I would hope that you would write it out properly, and sorry for my writing with a mouse here, it's not the best, of course. That's getting worse and worse as I go. Plus 2008. All right, so 8 and 2, of course, is 10. 6 and 0 is 6, plus the 1 that we carried is 7. 0 and 7 is 7. 2 and 4 is 6. and then 5 with nothing is 5. So that is the answer that I've worked out, and that should be in my book. Okay, again, if you want to do it on screen, fine, but it must always be in your book. So what I'm really needed to do is just type my answer in. So I'm going to type in 5677, and I'm going to deliberately make a mistake at the moment. So let's see what happens if I get this wrong. So I press enter, or go and click submit at the bottom, and it's telling me that I've got it wrong. Okay, so it's an incorrect step, and I've got this question wrong at the moment. So I can have another turn. Oh, sorry, I meant 2. Of course, I'm still making a mistake deliberately at the moment. So I press submit, and it goes, sorry, you've still got it wrong. So what is happening here is the system is telling me that I've got some mistakes here, and I need to try again. So I decide maybe I'm going to use a hint. So I come over to my hints, and I click on that, and it says, and unfortunately my scribble is in the way, so let me just get rid of that for a second. Okay, so the hint is we can split 2008 into a number of thousands, hundreds, tens, and units, and then add them to the number here. So again, it's a hint that may or may not be really useful for you, and often there's a second hint. So let's have another look at that. So it's trying to help me understand it. So eventually I'm happy with my hint, so I'll close that off. And I come back over here and go, oh, that's right, I just typed in the wrong number, or I added up wrong, or whatever I did, and I press submit. And now I can see a nice green tick telling me that I've got this question correct. Okay, so now I can press continue and go to the next question. So here we have 56 plus 22. Okay, so again, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to keep going through these questions until I either get to the end, or sometimes until the computer tells me I'm done. Because some of these tasks are set up in such a way that it looks for levels of skill with a certain type of question, and once the system believes you have mastered that skill, then it will stop. Okay, it's what we call an adaptive task. So basically it's looking for evidence, like I would be looking for in class, that you have understood this type of question, and therefore you can move on to the next stage. Okay, so is it about, it's almost like giving you feedback straight away that you've done really well, so therefore you can actually move on. So I hope that makes sense. That is the process for looking and working through questions. Now, I'll just touch on these buttons underneath, because they're not needed for these simple questions here, but you will sometimes need them. So if you need special characters, for example, some of them you can type. So if you need to put a bracket into a question, of course, you can type a bracket on your keyboard. But if you're trying to do something like an indices, a power, or a fraction, there's not really a button for that. So sometimes you need to click on these special buttons so that you can get something on the screen that you need. So if I was trying to do that to the power of something, I press that button, you can hopefully just see how the cursor moved up a bit. So I could now put square, all right? And then the next part might be multiplied by. So again, I can either click on the operators that I need here to get the multiply symbol, all right? And then it might be multiplied by a fraction. So to do a fraction, I click on the fraction button, and then I can do 1 and press tab to go to the bottom part, 2. So now I've got a fraction. So I can build up a complex equation with things that are not on my keyboard by using all these buttons down here. So you've got your basic operations, okay? You've got all your special things. The main ones we might talk about is square root, but we haven't done it yet, but we might. Certainly fractions and powers that we would need as well. So you can add these in to get quite fancy looking formulas, right? And it is important that you put them in properly, because otherwise the computer will tell you that you've got it incorrect. If at any point you've had enough for the moment, you can't do any more or something like that, you can always just go back to the menu by clicking this big arrow in the top left, and that'll take you back to the dashboard. And what we can now see is this task is in progress underneath here, all right? It's not finished yet, it's not due. I didn't complete it, it's in progress. So if I was to go back into this task, I will go back to wherever I was when I went out of it. So you don't necessarily have to complete everything in one hit. You can do a bit, have a break, come back to it, and you don't lose any of your work. Okay. The last thing I wanted to quickly talk about is the curriculum book over here. And we did see that little link in the question that takes you back to this. So if I click on this book, or if I click on the link in a question, it takes me to Mathspace version of the book. So it's like the Cambridge book that we had. So we're going to be looking at fractions as our real topic. So I'm just going to look at that section. And then if I look at the chapters, if you like, in there, so the first thing we'll be doing is this name, identify, order, and compare fractions. So if I go into that section, there's two things I can do. One, these are some sample questions. So again, even if the teacher hasn't set anything for you, you can come and have a go at some questions. You can click on these little dots at the bottom and you can say, try the question. So these are like the sample ones in the book. But if you click on this lesson tab at the top, then this takes you to like the explanation. And this is what my explanation videos will be based on now. So you can come in here and this is where you should read through this and learn this information, okay? Things that are highlighted sometimes are links, so it's worth checking whether you can click on them or do anything, but they're at least highlighted to tell you it's important. They have their summary at the bottom. Remember in Cambridge we had a key ideas section at the start. They have a summary at the bottom, still very good, and I will base a lot of the questions around, or the work around that. And again, they have some practice questions. Now the good thing about these practice questions as opposed to the other ones we saw is these have videos available. So this is not me, this is not my videos, but they have videos about this type of question and this idea that you can watch. And these have been made by teachers and Mathspace staff and linked into here. So again, you can say, okay, I need to learn more about this question so I can watch the video.
Hi, I'm Kim. Now in this question, we're looking for what fraction of the hexagon is shaded. That means how many parts out of the whole hexagon.
And as you can see, Kim, this teacher here working for Mathspace, has made this video, and you can see she's using the Mathspace page. This is exactly how the question would look, okay? So again, if I close Kim off for a second, just by clicking outside of the video, and if I now try this problem, you'll see that the screen that Kim had in her video and the screen that we have is basically the same. The only real difference is she had a hexagon, we've been given a square shape. And it will be different. The questions are able to adjust themselves depending on what you're doing. So here we have, you can see it's the same sort of question, this one as we saw before, but it has a picture in it. There is our space down the bottom left for us to enter in our answer. There is still the buttons that we need for the special things. We've got our hints and we've got the link back to the book, but also here now we have a link to the video. Because this question has a video explanation available for it, we can click on this button to go straight back to that video of Kim talking about this type of question. So again, this may or may not be available. If there's no video, of course there won't be a video link. Or if maybe I have set the videos to be hidden so that you can do a practice test or something, again, like the hints, it may be hidden. And I will do this question and press submit. These questions, when we're in the learning, do not count against your score. They are practice questions, so feel free to experiment. Feel free to, make sure you really understand something. Is when you go to the exercises that obviously, if you get them wrong, no one's in trouble, of course, but that's where I will see that you've gotten some things wrong and that maybe you need some help there. It doesn't count these ones. These are pure practice questions for you to make sure you understand things before you do the real task. But just like before, when I'm done, I either can submit my answer or I can go back and not try that question and have a go at something else. That is how Mathspace works. So hopefully through this video and through just some playing with it, you'll be able to get the hang of this pretty quickly. As I said at the beginning, this will be what we use for our fractions topic, which will be what we are doing via distance learning or remote learning again this time. And more than likely, it will be what we use going forward for the remainder of this year. That's the plan, at least. So it is very important that you do get comfortable with Mathspace. As always, if you're having problems, please get in contact, whether it's problems with Mathspace itself or problems with the work. Of course, please tell me straight away so I can try and help you, and that way we can have a good remote learning experience together. Thanks, everyone. Good luck. Talk to you soon, and hopefully see you back at school soon as well.